A few days ago, Corpse Husband's face reveal was leaked, or more correctly, doxed from an exhaustive search through everything that he has revealed about himself through years of being on YouTube. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what doxing is, it's the act of revealing somebody's personal information for everyone to see. Philip DeFranco and Noah Carter have already cashed in on this easy views, with Philip going so far as to report on the issue but not actually say anything of value in classic Philip DeFranco style, and then finishing off with, "I'm not going to show the images to protect Corpse Husband." For someone who has been on YouTube since the creation of the platform itself, Philip should really know better about virtue signaling his true intentions. This is easy money, is all I'm going to say, and he knows this, I know this, every YouTube content creator knows this. Now, I'm not going to bullshit my hopefully more mature audience by saying that I'm not going to harm Corpse's online image and persona by not showing the images in question. By creating this very video, I've created an informational hazard which will spark many of you to seek out the very images that we're trying to avoid sharing. I respectfully ask that, inevitably, your curiosity will get the best of you, but that you do not share the images and instead use this opportunity to learn about the role of physical attractiveness and how prevalent it is in our lives and how it affects the way you see people, both real and fictional. This event is a perfect opportunity for me to speak to my audience, many of whom haven't been on the internet long enough to remember the days where internet privacy and stranger danger were very real concepts and not just some boomer meme. Andrea Tabea explained it best in The Rise of Faceless YouTubers, where YouTube started off with anonymous creators, but then the likes of Tyler Oakley, Jenna Marbles, and David Dobrik made a living off of having everything about their lives online and documented, like some twisted Black Mirror episode. Nowadays, YouTubers are switching back to the anonymous format, but without the knowledge of how to protect themselves online that the earlier YouTubers of 2010 to 2014 had. Corpse's dox was an inevitability, and I certainly don't want to sound like a victim blamer, but with the internet being accessible to quite literally everyone, just like I wouldn't paint myself to be an easy target walking down a sketchy neighborhood, I certainly wouldn't want to paint myself as a target online, especially not the biggest target by being the largest faceless YouTuber by influence and reach. This is one of the challenges of making your money on the internet, from a website being randomly hacked just for the lols to having your personal details leaked, and it seems that many of you have forgotten the privileges that you've had in the last few years of not having that happen to someone you know. Oftentimes, the best deterrent to a bike thief is to have a bigger lock than your neighbor. The entirety of the internet is a sketchy neighborhood, and the harder you try to conceal your vulnerabilities, which for Corpse was his face, the larger the bounty becomes for his antagonist, but that's not the full picture as to why this was an inevitability. If you're new to the channel, we use science to challenge the subjectivity of beauty. Beauty is not in the eye of the beholder, but rather in universal beauty standards that we all subconsciously or even consciously can agree with, and Corpse's voice has a very large influence as to why his perceived attractiveness was so great. From Zuckerman et al. 1993, there are a number of factors that influence the attractiveness of a voice, most importantly loudness and resonance, and if you've noticed in Corpse's Among Us playthroughs, his voice is always the one that stands out by volume. For this study, deepness, throatiness, and monotonousness had negative correlations for women in terms of attractiveness, but positive ones for men, and these three traits are exactly what Corpse's voice has an abundance of, partially due to his acid reflux disease, partially due to his prosody, his enunciation, and partially just by being endearingly socially awkward. Also, in the peak of his Among Us popularity, Corpse rarely spoke, and so when he did, the loudness and cadence of his voice made everyone stop and listen, making his perceived attractiveness only go up as he displayed social dominance through his voice alone. Getting lots of Twitch streamers with very large followings to simp over your voice also helps make you seem more desirable, not only to other women, but to the men who pride themselves on being tier 3 Pokemon subs. Most of you know Corpse through one of three ways from his time on YouTube, as a creepypasta narrator, the Among Us player, and lately the rapper/musician. Back when he was a creepypasta narrator,
she was running. I could hear Gavin yelling for her to run faster.
His appeal was mostly through his voice alone, and for many his voice was actually considered creepy, as in unappealing. As an Among Us player, this is when the world really started seeing Corpse differently, and this is where he started transitioning into his rapping career by playing out the edgy and mysterious persona. What was once to him a weakness became his brand as a faceless YouTuber, and this is when things really started to get out of hand. Corpse's hand reveal went viral on Twitter, and make no mistake, he knew exactly what he was doing. Thirst traps don't have to be all abs and ass. As I've explained many times on the Patreon podcast, the female gaze, in other words what women actually want, versus the male gaze where men think they know what women want, find hands very attractive, far more so than abs, legs, shoulders and arms, only just behind the face itself. So Corpse's hand reveal, which is a moderately nicely shaped hand, was no coincidence, and this only increased his perceived attractiveness and set himself up for failure if his looks did not match the image that he himself was cultivating for his audience, and there are so many more examples like this. See, with Dream's docs, it was quite different. Dream is a Minecraft YouTuber who makes speedruns and manhunt videos with the occasional homoerotic comment towards his friends, as most men do. While his fanbase is young and impressionable, he doesn't go particularly out of his way to cultivate a larger-than-life image of himself, but he also doesn't deny either, which is why he was a target of being doxed, albeit a lesser bounty for his antagonists. Corpse, on the other hand, benefits directly from keeping up the image of an attractive, edgy e-boy with the painted nails, veiny arms, and suggestive imagery, and so in many ways he is actively scorning the people who don't like him and fueling the fire for those who do. This is why the expectations of what he looks like are so much higher than for virtually any other YouTuber. I've been around long enough to know this, and technically I'm a faceless YouTuber myself, but I pulled an Eminem quite early on, and I do live in a trailer with my mom! And don't try too hard to protect my identity, because inevitably to run coups I need to give interviews, meet business owners in person, and work with my employees. The harder you try to hide something, the harder the Barbra Streisand effect will slap you back, and if you don't know what that is, then this is the exact problem I'm talking about, with history repeating itself on a new generation of content creators. Yep, that Barbra Streisand. I want to touch on a few aspects of this particular docs, because from a technical standpoint, it is very rigorous and well thought out, and you should understand how it happened. Corpse, being a faceless YouTuber for a long time now, has unmistakably left breadcrumbs that people have used against him, namely what state and city he lives around. Then from that information, his older 2016 Snapchats had clear identifying clues to them, like distinct signage, which allows his doxers to hone in on what municipality he lives in. The rest is cluing together where the Snapchats were taken, and by sheer luck, people recognize the Jamba Juice and the Walmart from his snaps, and then creating a radius that a person would travel to from, like a 20-minute walk from Walmart means he could live in XYZ radius. One of Corpse's friends had also posted pictures with Corpse, obviously with him being out of view, which left key details in the background that could be linked to Corpse's hand thirst traps, with one particularly distinct picture that gave away exactly where they were staying. And the craziest part to me is that somehow the doxer was able to recover a list of tenants that were staying there. How is that even allowed? Well, once you have a name, the rest is history, going so far as to find his grandma's Facebook, and as most grandparents are very proud and open of their grandchildren, she was inevitably the weakest link here, putting the nail in the coffin. The details are obviously very vague because that's all you need to know to understand the lengths that people are willing to go to get what they want, and sometimes that thing that they want is your privacy. So why did I go through this docs in detail? For two reasons. One, the popular consensus from those who are less aware of how these doxers actually work, which is like 90% of Corpse's audience because they're all under the age of 16, believe that this is a fake and this is some random person that everyone is bullying for their looks. I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say that given the complexity of how this happened, this is no random person. Secondly, deflecting blame every time a dox does happen, especially one as serious as this, takes away from the gravity of the situation. Oh, it's just some random kid, who cares then? With his fans trying to do damage control like a badly run PR firm, this only makes the situation worse and gets the hashtag trending on Twitter. Most doxers happen because of your Facebook profile. For some people, it's their entire life's biodata, but not only does this affect you, but everyone you're friends with on the platform as well. By default, your details are made public, and while most younger generations are aware of online privacy, your grandparents certainly are not, and if there's a weak link in the chain, it doesn't matter how strong your chainmail is. For most people, you may think that this doesn't apply to you, because who would want to dox you? But it doesn't hurt to be safe. This also raises a larger question of, is there a looks requirement to making it in music? Corpse's lyrics are very sexualized, and this leads to the demographic of young, impressionable girls. The problem is, in each of these girls' minds, there is an idealized version of Corpse. For some, Corpse is a suntanned Latino man with curly hair. For others, corpse is very white passing with sharp facial features. When that image came out, Schrodinger's corpse was settled, and granted that this from 7 years ago, it gave people the impression that he doesn't have the sharp facial features that he himself shows on his social media profiles. So when Corpse says, this use of hypersexualized imagery would make a lot of sense if it was coming from Bryson Tiller, Ghostmane, or some other conventionally attractive singer/rapper, but if Corpse says it and the way he looks doesn't match up to our heightened perception of what we think he looks like, and it's heightened now because of all the reasons I gave previously, then this incongruency is very difficult for people to get over, and we've covered the psychology of why this incongruency is so jarring for us in many of the earlier videos on beauty standards. This is the same as an up-and-coming rapper who's not making any money currently, rapping in his songs about how much money and cars and women he has and gets. It's the same idea with Corpse. This image, this leak puts into question, does Corpse actually have any sexual currency that he's selling to actually give out? From a facial aesthetic point of view, I don't think he catfished anyone, and the replies on Twitter are exactly how children see the world, in binaries of black and white, ugly and attractive. He has similar features to his profile picture, but given what he has said in interviews, due to his chronic illnesses, he struggles with weight nowadays. I can only assume that by this he means water retention, bloating and edema, which are symptoms of his illnesses, and this can make his cheeks appear puffy, and so had he not had these handicaps, he certainly isn't false advertising, and Twitter is being childish as expected. His fans are being irrational, unable to consider a viewpoint other than their own for just a second, and the people who doxed him should be condemned rather than everyone else trying to deflect blame and forgetting the actual violation of privacy that has taken place.